Hello, everyone, and welcome to Changing the World Through STEAM. My name is Kimi, my pronouns are she, her, and I'll be your host for today's panel. I'd like to begin by gratefully acknowledging that Science World is located on the traditional and unceded land of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. We'll start today with a quick introduction from our amazing group of mentors, followed by a hosted discussion. If you have any questions for the mentors, please feel free to put those in the chat at any time. Our technician today is Sean, who will be monitoring the chat. So if you have any technical issues, he will be happy to assist you. We do ask that you keep your comments in the chat and in the questions section respectful and relevant to the topics being discussed. Now it's time to meet our mentors. So let's start by going around and doing a brief introduction before we jump into questions. So mentors, if you could turn on your screens, we will bring you up on camera. Hello, welcome everybody. So in order to get to know you all, can you please let us know your name, your job title, and the thing that you love most about your career? Rika, do you want to go first?
Sure. Thanks, Kimi. Nice to be here today. Our name is Meetrika Moon, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm located in Victoria, the beautiful traditional territory of the Wasanich and Esquimalt peoples. And I work for BC Parks as the community engagement and inclusion specialist. What was the rest of the question? Oh, what I love about my job. My job is super versatile. I get to work with volunteers. I get to work on things that I'm really passionate about, equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives at BC Parks, get to work with the BC Parks Foundation, bring interpretation back into parks. So lots of interesting stuff, and keeps me really busy and engaged.
Wow, that's so cool to hear, Rika. Yeah, Miryam, what about you?
So hi, my name is Miriam Vilgrami. My pronouns are she, hers. And I'm coming to you today from the sacred, traditional, unsurrendered, and stolen lands of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam, Coquitlam, and Squamish nations. I am an uninvited settler on these lands, and I'm so grateful for the work that I get to do. My title is fancy, but I will tell you the work that comes under it. So the title is Senior Manager of Innovation, Engagement, and Advocacy. And I work at Diversity Community Resources Society, and we are an immigrant-serving organization. However, as a part of my role, I get to do a lot of innovative stuff, including a recent project release called the Racism Mapping Project, which is an online platform that is tracking incidents of racism and hate within our communities. I was also a part of facilitating the launch of a project which is called the 31st People's Guide for Newcomers. It's a guide for newcomers to understand the history and the current state of our nation. The work that I get to do is really cool because it's innovative. I get to come up with interesting and different solutions to some of the problems that we see. And at the end of the day, when I go to bed, I know that I'm doing my best to make our city a place where everyone feels like they belong.
Wow. So we have some pretty interesting careers and fields that are represented here today. That's amazing. So let me ask you this. How did you get started? Because one of you is in BC Parks and the other one is doing an interactive app, really, is what I'm hearing. So how did you get started in this career or in your field? Did you know right away that you wanted to go into this? How did you get there?
Really great question, Kimi. When I was in grade 5, I wanted to be a scientist. I grew up in northeast Germany at the Baltic Sea, on a farm, always in nature, always outside. I wanted to be a scientist. I wanted to do research. Went through high school to university, graduated, or got a master's degree in human biology. Then pursued to get a PhD in neuroscience, and thought I would work in the field of neuroscientist, be a neuroscientist, do brain research. I did that for a couple of years, worked in the field of kind of basic physiology research. And then I decided to take a year off because my university time was pretty straightforward. I just worked through, and I never had really time off. And I think that's an advice that I want to give young folks as well. If you're finishing high school, take a year off, go travel, see the world, experience something different. So I did that after I worked a couple of years in research. I came to Canada just for a year to improve my English. That is now almost 13 years ago. So then I started working at Science World when I came to Canada, and started working, in community engagement, science communication. So it took a bit of a shift. And now I ended up working for BC Parks, so working for the provincial government. I would have never thought my path would take me here to where I am right now and what I'm doing. But I'm really grateful it did, because I feel like I followed my passion, and now doing something that I'm really passionate about and that I enjoy doing. And I think that's also important for students to know that, follow your passion, follow your dreams, and figure out what you really want. Work is, so you spend a lot of time working, do something that is meaningful for you.
Totally true. Wow, that's quite the journey, and all sorts of zigs and zags to get to where you are now. How about you, Miriam? How did you get to where you are? Did you think you were going to be doing what you're doing now when you first started?
Absolutely not. I remember I used to love to read when I was younger, and I was like, I'm going to be a writer, I'm going to be a journalist. And, that was kind of my focus. I went to university, at York University, and started studying mass communications. And very quickly, I realized that that wasn't something that was bringing me joy. And so I dropped out of university, didn't finish, and started just, thinking, okay, I need to explore. I need to explore what is it that I like to do, and then what is it that I'm good at, and then find that middle ground so I can kind of really embody like passion, but then also, thriving towards being and doing better for myself. And it took years, but I realized very quickly that, being in service of others, so doing things for others, is what brought me joy. So it didn't matter what kind of day I'd had, if I was able to go back and feel like I'd helped someone or done something good for somebody, that just kind of, really helped me deal with all of the other complexities that come with, being new in a country, and just, deciding what it is that I'd like to do. And so I was really fortunate. I had an amazing role model, have an amazing role model. My mother, she's, been in social service and community development for many, many years. And so having seen her grow and her success and just her impact on the world, I decided that, all right, I need to work for a nonprofit. Like, that was my number one thing. And then, when I was here and when I moved to Canada, having been somebody who was a newcomer and experienced all of those, all of the problems that come from that, all the barriers, all the new things that come from being new to the country, not really knowing where you belong and how to fit in and what to do. So that was kind of my thing, where I sat down one day and said, okay, the top 5 places I want to work for, while I'm here. And I wrote them down, and I ended up working for both of the top 2.
Oh, wow.
And so, so it eventually got me to this point. And, one of the things that I always tell people is, it may be unexpected, but I think sometimes others know better. So really listen to your loved ones around you, because they're, my friends and my family are the ones who told me, you thrive, you shine when you get to help others, when, we see that twinkle in your eye when you're able to come up with something that resolves a problem or fixes something for someone. So see that, listen to that, hear from others, because no one has to follow any kind of traditional pathway. My culture, for us as Pakistanis, we were always told doctor, lawyer, engineer, like there was all these traditional things. Everybody has to have a PhD, but I didn't do that. And I'm proud to say that I'm doing something I love. I am successful in my life. And so I hope whoever's here today and whoever's listening, that you do what you love, and you don't have to follow the path that's been laid out before you.
Wow, I feel so inspired right now. Thank you for that. Wow, and you actually touched on a whole bunch of questions that I will be asking. No, that's good, and that's great. But one thing that you both did talk about is that you both sort of had experiences with being in secondary education. So I guess that's sort of what that's going to be my next question: is what kind of skills, both academic and non-academic, are helping you in your role today? Now, I know, Rika, you said you went for your full neuroscience degree, and Miriam, you said you tried secondary education and it just didn't really work for you. Both totally valid things. But I'm wondering, in your role today, what kind of academic skills did you need to get there? And are you using today, I guess is the question. Rika, I'll throw it back to you maybe for that one.
For sure. It's again a really good question. If you think about, I have my background in neuroscience. How do I use that in community engagement? Really good question. I think it really helps to be organized. I moved through university quite quickly because I am an organized and kind of effective worker, and I get my stuff done. So that's really helpful, to stay on top of tasks. I have a lot of projects going on at one time and at the same time. So it's really important to be organized. Then secondly, critical thinking, super important. Any work you do, I work with a lot of community partners. Look at a lot of issues that people might be affected by when visiting parks, for example, provincial parks. So being a good listener is a really important skill as well that I need. Empathy. Those are maybe not so closely connected to university skills or hard skills,
but they're still really important skills.
Absolutely.
to work on. And that's really was my question. I mean, that was a two-part question: academic and the non-academic skills. And those are great to hear, that those are really strong skills that you use day to day. Did you have anything to add to that? I sort of jumped in, but
no, I think kind of sums it up. And asking a lot of questions. I don't know if I mentioned that already, right? Like I think that's really important piece too. Is never stop asking questions. I think as children, if you think about talking to a child, they will ask a lot of questions. They want to understand the world, right? And at some point when we become adults, we forget to ask questions. But it's so important to continue to ask a lot of questions and not just take things, how they are. Just, ask questions.
Good advice. Absolutely. Definitely good advice if you're watching. Miriam, same question to you. You obviously have picked up academic skills along your way. Which of them do you use now? Which of them did you need to get to where you are? And also some of the non-academic ones. It's a big question, but whatever skills you can recommend would be great to hear.
I mean, I would definitely say the discipline piece is so important, because as you get older, you're no longer in a structured, you are in a structured environment, but you're self-structuring a lot. Like you're figuring out your own schedules, you're deciding what you're going to do first, prioritizing, and all of that is very, very helpful. But I think the other piece that was also that I to this day to today I'm bringing into my everyday life is being able to change your mind as you learn new things, right? Because I went into university with one way of thinking. I took some philosophy classes, and suddenly I was like, wow, okay, so the world isn't exactly what I thought it was, right? Or there are various examples of things that I suddenly realized I wanted to change my mind about, so it was this aspect of knowing what you know today, but then being open to changing as you learn more as days go on by. And that's where that questioning thing really comes in too. Like a part of my job and something that I make time for every day is to reflect and question. So I'll sit down at the end of the day and say, okay, so I was in that meeting. Who wasn't at the table? Why weren't they there? Was this benefiting? Why is it only benefiting them? What part of the system is failing and what is working? And so just that ability to reflect, question, understand, and then potentially change your mind, and being in a room with people that may disagree with you and being okay with that too. So I mean, that was a lot of I believe that academia helped with that, because there was a lot of discussions in spaces where we weren't all the same and we didn't all have the same thought process. And so we really had to develop this sense of not just talking for the sake of arguing or proving your own point, but really learning why the other person is saying what they're saying, where are they coming from, what else could I learn about them, and why else, what are the other reasons that they could be saying some of the things they're saying. So very, very useful. And then, as far as non-academic is concerned, I think passion cannot be taught. I don't think anyone can teach you how to be passionate about what you do. That really does come from finding that sweet spot between finding something you love and being very good at it. So, I would say non-academic would definitely be that. And then, of course, the empathy, the compassion, and then the deep understanding that we're all complex humans who've all been through different things in our lives. And so really being mindful of that when we're going into any kind of spaces.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that is a great answer to that question. So I'm wondering now if I've gotten to this point and I've watched you both speak and I'm feeling super inspired, how would I go about finding out more about the field that you're in? Where are some resources that I could look to, or where could what are some resources I could access or learn more about, or maybe even see you out in your natural habitat? How could I get involved if I felt really strongly about either one of your careers?
Yeah, my natural habitat. It's funny. Currently, my natural habitat is my home. I work from home. Unfortunately, I don't get to go out into the field too often. Working for BC Parks, you might think, I spend a lot of time in parks. Not so much, mostly working from home. It's an administrative job that I have. Doing, a lot of community engagement work through talking to people, on in online meetings like we have right now, face to face. Over the last couple of years, not so much. But maybe going forward again. I think the best way to learn about this career of working in community engagement is probably to take an internship, to not sure if you can do right after high school, but or a high school work experience, practicum, something like that. I think would give you maybe a bit of a taste of what it's like to work in community engagement. But it's not so much, a career path where you can go to school and you just become a community engagement experts. I think it comes with experience and time. And as you can see with both our career paths, they are very windy, and you might start something in university and then you change your mind and try something different, or work a job that you never thought you would take you to where you are. Where we are today, essentially. And so not too much information out there. I mean, you can take a look at the BC Parks website, but you'll find more information about camping.
And that's great to hear. But you talk about community engagement. Where could I, as a layperson, where could I see the effects of your work? Maybe is a better question for you.
Yeah, really, that's a good question. So, for example, a few initiatives that I work on are related to equity, diversity, and inclusion. So we want to make sure that everyone who comes into a park, they can see themselves not only reflected, but also can feel like they are safe to go into a park space, like they belong into the outdoor, great outdoors, and they can enjoy themselves. So a really good example is actually a welcome sign that we've created. We developed over the last couple of years that has been put up in parks across the province last summer. And it just states simple words like "you belong, you're welcome" to BC Parks, and invites people to enjoy the space and feel safe. Yeah, so this is one example of the work that I've been doing.
Perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for. Yeah, because you're talking about community engagement, and I want to know, how do I see your footprint in the community? And that's great to hear. That makes it so good to welcome everybody to BC's wonderful parks. Miriam, do you want to answer the question? Where can we see you? How can we get involved in what you're doing? What's your natural habitat? How do we, if I really am feeling strongly now, after watching some of this video, how do I get in contact? What are some resources?
Well, I get asked this question quite a bit, so I'm ready with my answers. So there's various ways that you can, either see what is the work that we're doing, or also be involved. So we're going to be putting up. Sean's going to be putting up some links in the chat now. So feel free to take a look. One of them is the Surrey Local Immigration Partnership website. That's going to give you an idea of all of the projects that we've undertaken as part of our community engagement work. As a coalition working towards increasing belonging in our cities. I have also put in the link for what we have a council, which is our Surrey Youth Newcomer Council. And it is a council that is created by the LIP, which is by the Local Immigration Partnership. And it consists of youth. It is completely by youth, for youth. They have complete autonomy. It's led by them. There's two youth co-leads. I think the youngest member is 14 and the eldest is 23. So we have, and what these amazing youth leaders are doing in the community is collecting together and talking about stuff that they're seeing that's happening around them that needs to be addressed. And then they bring that info back to us. We take it back up to, the people that are leaders of organizations, and we tell them that this is what the youth of the community is saying you need to be doing. And then, we're held accountable to that. So we make sure that some results come out of that. So when the problem is brought to us, we make sure that results are presented back. And the youth also, they're amazing because they also do events and things like that, which are very, very, like I said, youth-led. I'm not even invited. I get a lot of, we love you, Miryam, but you're not youth. So feel free, I put the link in, you can reach out directly to them. They're always looking for volunteers. Other spaces that do this, other local immigration partnerships also do this in Vancouver, in Burnaby, New West, and other spaces. Neighborhood houses also have similar councils, so I would highly recommend you check out neighborhood houses. And then, of course, if you want to see some of the projects that I've worked on recently, there's a link for our racism mapping project, which we're also going to be putting up in the chat. And that's a way for us to really engage with community through an online digital platform for folks to be able to, go in and say, hey, this really horrible thing happened to me, and it's potentially racist or ageist or was fueled by hatred or discrimination of any kind. And so whether it happens to you, to a friend, or something you witness, you're able to go in and put that in there. And that way we're, as a city, as a community, we're able to respond to what is really happening out there on the ground.
Wow. So there's a way to really reach out through the community and just not feel alone. So really, both of your careers feel like they're just very inclusive and welcoming and just really wanting to create a stronger community in different ways. But that sounds like it's sort of the heart of what you guys are doing. So before the stream, I asked both of our mentors to think about what advice would I give myself if I was 14 or to a 14-year-old who's watching this right now. So I'll put it back to you guys, mentors. What advice would you give yourself if you were 14, to your own 14-year-old self, or to a 14-year-old watching today?
I can go. Good. I can go first.
Sure.
I think, if I were 14 again, I would probably not go to university actually right away. I would probably, take some time off. Again, as I mentioned earlier, explore what I'm really, passionate about, try out different things, and maybe try to learn a trade before I would move on to university. I think that's something I've discovered later in life, that I'm actually passionate about woodworking, and I enjoy working with my hands. That's kind of gives me an outlet. And it's really refreshing for me. So it might have been nice for me to try that out before going to university. But I think it's similar to what Miryam mentioned earlier. There's this pressure in the German society too, that everyone should go to university, and you should have a university degree and whatnot. But I think it's really important to learn and figure out who you are and what you're really passionate about and what you want to do. So trying out tons of different things, and not, kind of pigeonholing yourself into a certain career path. I think that's important. Keeping an open mind. And if things don't go well, and you maybe make a mistake and whatnot, that's okay. That's part of learning, and that's part of life. So I think that's my advice. Find your passion.
That's great advice. Yeah, even adults make mistakes, even though, we don't seem like it, but we make mistakes too. Miriam, sorry. Same question to you. Advice to yourself at 14 or advice to 14-year-olds today?
I think to myself and to 14-year-olds today, the first thing I would say is, try being around people and making friends with people who aren't like you. So I think our instinct as when we're younger is to always seek things that are familiar to us, that are like us, that sound, look, feel, agree with our values and things that are similar. We read the same kind of books, we watch the same kind of shows, like everything is familiarity. And, I kind of wish that at that age, I had reached out more to things that weren't so familiar, that weren't the same, that weren't exactly what I was used to or comfortable with. And similarly along that line, I would say, travel as soon as you can, as young as you can, as much as you can, because it really opens up your eyes to a whole different side of things that you may not have seen before. And it shows you, how, when it comes to this big, humongous world, planet, universe, we're like this, it just humbles you and makes you see things in such a different way. And, the other thing that I also want to add is just, it's hard to do this when we're younger. I still struggle to do it, even though I'm a lot older than 14 now. Is to be, to feel the moments, when today, just feel it, smell it, breathe it, eat it, sleep it, just all of that, because it goes away. It goes by really, really fast. And if you've taken the time to really sit there and think about what something has made you feel, or where it's made you feel it in your body, or what kind of memory you would like to hold. So when you're looking back 20 years from now, you're going, oh yeah, no, I remember exactly what that is. And those are moments that stay with you forever. So those are the two things that I would love to say.
Wow, you guys have such good advice. I feel like I'm learning so much right now. Thank you both for that. So my next question is, it's 2022. Obviously, we're in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. So my question to you is, how has your career changed, or your field, maybe your field, how has it changed with the pandemic? Because obviously it was one way before, pre-pandemic, and maybe some things have changed, maybe it hasn't. Technology has certainly changed, and the way that we all connect with each other has certainly changed. I know more people are going into BC parks. So I'm curious, how have you seen a shift in your specific field from the pandemic? Rika, do you want to start? I feel like we're starting with you all the time, if that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. No problem at all. And just want to mention this, really enjoying the conversation and getting to know you, Miryam. It's really lovely. As you say, Kimmy, we get a lot of people coming into parks, and I think this has been so important to see, folks coming into nature, and folks who maybe haven't been enjoying nature before. And I think that is an important piece. But then on the other hand, there's a lot of pressure on the parks as well, right? On the parks and protected areas. So what we're looking into is how can we make sure that everyone can enjoy great outdoors safely, and that we can still protect the beautiful places that we have, keep them maybe not pristine, but as natural as possible, right? So that's one aspect. In regards to the work that I'm doing, before the pandemic, we used to focus more on face-to-face meetings. If we had for example, an event for volunteers, we brought volunteers together. We would do it kind of just locally. So we would bring local volunteers together. In my role, I support our regional staff, so folks who work all across the province, and they would host localized events. But with the with technology evolving and people also becoming more accustomed to using technology, we can now connect volunteers in different parts of the province and can bring them together and do a bigger networking, right? Which is really great, because then you can connect people who might otherwise not have been connected, right? And I hope we'll continue this on going forward, not just keeping it localized, but making it broader and sharing broader experiences.
Absolutely. Great answer. That's So positive. Such a great answer. Miriam, what about you? How has the pandemic changed your field? Sort of what have you seen changes post or pre-pandemic and post, hopefully, pandemic?
I think this is a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, there's a lot of positives that have come from it. I mean, like, the accessibility piece to some folks. I mean, with community engagement, it's, a lot of everything was happening in person before. So we've learned this new way of now engaging, which is providing, a hybrid kind of environment where you can engage online, you can engage in different ways. However, it has highlighted things like digital inequity, which essentially means that not everyone internet or smartphones or laptops or a way to connect with us online. And so we really see that huge gap there now, and we see what kind of barriers that some folks may have when they want to be engaging with us, and also the piece around being responsive to emergencies that come up within our communities, such as the pandemic, to see what is it that we did well and what we didn't do well. And a lot of what we realize is that these kind of things may be happening, and I mean, hopefully they don't happen again. But if they do, we need to be prepared as a community, rather than just jumping on it and going, oh gosh, now we need to do this. Kind of developing ways to be able to respond to something like this if it comes up again. So being more prepared. So that's definitely the positive side, where we now know that if something similar like this comes up, what are we going to do? What are the things that are going to be needed? Who are the people that are most vulnerable, meaning who will need the most support? And what can we do to make sure that they're the ones that get the support first, and then everything that comes after that? So yes, the benefits are, with our youth, for example, they love the online engagement, right? They've just been like, this is great. We don't need to, change or do anything or take the bus or come and see you. So this is great. We'll do everything online. But then we've had some people who are like, no, we miss the in-person contact, and we want you to bring delicious food for us while we have these conversations. So it's been a bit of a mixed bag. I will say, though, that I like the idea of doing things hybrid, because that gives the folks the opportunity that couldn't come out. For example, one of my close friends who's a mom who wasn't able to arrange for childcare was able to attend all of our events and meetings because she was able to do it from home. And then there's another friend who couldn't because he had 4 of his kids going to online school at the same time. And so they didn't even have enough laptops or smartphones or the ability to be able to access those spaces. So bit of a mixed bag, but I have to say we've learned a lot, and we're hoping we're a little bit better prepared if something like this happens again.
Absolutely. Good answer. Great answers. Both of them. Great answers. So what do you think, I guess, so we talked about the effect the pandemic has had, just sort of pre and post. So what are some misconceptions that people might still have about your career, about your field, or more about your impact on the community? Because both of you have very strong community roles. What do you think are some misconceptions that people still have about BC Parks, or going to them, or I don't know about the work that you do, Miriam? I don't know. What do you think? And, take this opportunity now to clear up all those misconceptions that people might have.
All right. Well, if you think of BC Parks, we are provincial government. If you think about government bureaucracy, unfortunately, it's not so much of a misconception. Things take a little longer working for government. Huge learning curve for me, coming from science world where it was a little more nimble, and we could accomplish things a little quicker. But then, on the other hand, working for government is this huge opportunity that once you have put things in place, they are in place, right? So I feel like the chance that I have right now working for government is that I can make changes that will be there forever, right? Or for a long time, right? So working on systemic changes that might take time and will be slow, but once we have accomplished these systemic changes, then they will be there, and they will hopefully make the lives of so many more people better, and will create a more inclusive community, right? Essentially, so I think that's the biggest plus of working for government. You can actually accomplish change. You have to push hard and long, and have to be patient. Patience is not always my strength. I want to get things done quickly, but I've been learning over the last couple of years that if you're patient, then really good things can come out of that. And so that's kind of my take on maybe not busting any misconceptions, but
I
still
mean,
a good place to be, right? If you want to accomplish change within
absolutely.
government.
Yeah, that's a great point to make. I'm so glad you made that. It's certainly, something everyone thinks, I'm sure at one point or another, but it's definitely a good thing to remember that in order to make change, you have to be the change. So, Miriam, what about you?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions that perhaps even I had before I started working in the settlement sector was that when we're working towards making communities more inclusive and making sure everyone has a sense of belonging, that we're only working with the newcomers, and that's not the case.
Okay.
We work very closely with community as a whole. So all community serving organizations, with schools, all kinds of educational institutions, anyone providing service back into the community, and libraries. It's really so important for everyone to be on board when we talk about being inclusive and welcoming. It's not just the people that arrived today or yesterday or 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 years ago. It's all of us. And, the other piece was the importance of bridging the gap between First Nations and Indigenous and newcomer communities, because it's so important for people when we get here, and I say we because I still consider myself a newcomer here, to know the history of the lands that we're on, and to know that we're on stolen lands, and to understand what and how that impacts all of the work that we do, and and what it means to be an uninvited settler. And I'd be so happy if someone wants to reach out and talk more about that. I'd be so happy to share more information with you. But those are all those misconceptions that I had initially had, and I've learned so much. I learn still to every single day I learn. And that's another thing. You will continuously learn in this field. There's never going to be a day where you're not learning something new or unlearning something old. Super important to put that in.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Wow. Great answers. And like I said before, I feel like I'm learning so much. You guys are inspiring me so much. Amazing answers. Yeah. And I hope that the two of you connect too, because we sort of talked about it pre-conversation, and it sounds like you're both working so similarly, but in very different fields. But yeah, it sounds like some good relationship building can be happening here, which is very exciting. So we are sort of closing in up to the deadline here of when we got to stop filming. But I guess is there one last thought that you want to leave? Maybe that you could give in a 30-second or 1-minute soundbite to our audience about your job and about something to get them really pumped up and excited, and to get them to look forward to going through all these resources that you guys have talked about in this discussion. Can you give like a 30-second, 1-minute soundbite of let's get people pumped up and ready to explore? Ready, Rika?
Not quite, but
that's okay. Miriam, yeah, absolutely. If you're ready, go for it.
Sure. I mean, I hope this is going to hit the way I'd like it to, but when we want to change the world, we always say, oh, you have to do this, and there has to be, all of this people and power and all of that. But I promise you that all it takes to change the world is for you to get up one day and say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it, and I'm going to do it. And it starts with one person and one idea, and then you'll see, like that. If you build it, they will come. Yeah, do it. Start it. It'll happen. It comes and it happens. And I'm so lucky to be able to do the work that I do. So lucky. And I'm grateful every single day. And I really hope that some of you here decide to do this work too, because we need you. We need leaders like you to take on this work.
Super resonates with me too. I second everything Miriam said. And you know what is also important? Don't forget to be yourself. Make sure you can find a place where you can be yourself. I'm a member of the LGBTQ2S+ community, and in the work that I'm doing, I can be who I am, and I'm proud to be who I am, and I think that's really important too. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, I've only got 30 seconds left, so if you're watching this, thank you so much for joining us. Next up, we do have our closing game show happening on the main stage screen, so be sure to head over there to participate. So thank you again, and I'm going to ask Sean to close us off. So thank you very much. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time, I hope. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye.